I always called it pop for the longest time, and then I learned that it's a regional.
Yeah, totally.
Thing.
And then you were like, I don't want to be from a region.
No, I actually really disliked people calling it soda. I'm like, it's pop.
Really?
What are you talking about? Yeah, because I was judgmental asshole for a long time.
What if you just called soda pop?
That's too much.
That's an NSYNC song, right?
Too many syllables. Is it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
An NSYNC commercial for...
It's an NSYNC song. Yeah. I'm just like,
any brand.
Tired of drinking all these ices lying around.
Okay, that does sound very familiar. TBH.
It does not to me.
It's okay. I feel like you might have missed the NSYNC window, Nathan.
Not your language.
Not my language.
Unless you dated someone for whom NSYNC was their language, in which case you might have been exposed to it. But
still no.
Not country.
That would require me dating.
Amen.
Classic.
Yeah. Pretty
Welcome back to the Janchi Show. Dating portion. Even though we are all married.
Happily married.
You're listening to the Janchi Show, hosted by 3 Korean American adoptees diving headfirst into what it means to be adopted, Korean, American, and more. And now, here's your hosts, Nathan, Patrick, and KJ.
Welcome back to the Janchi Show. We're here for the interview portion of the show, and we have a very special guest today. We have Jonathan Bergstrom, who comes to us from Texas, along with KJ. We got to meet you in person, so thank you for coming onto the show. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have a conversation here. We like to start all our shows off with a standard introduction of yourself. So if you would like to tell us your story with as much or as little detail as you want.
Perfect. Thank you. So I was born in 1975 in Korea. I was told when I became conscious that I was born in the city of Busan. And I was born to an adoptee, not a Korean adoptee, but an adoptee in America. And he actually didn't know his nationality, and a Swedish mother. I was adopted to Minnesota like the 40 other thousand adoptees that came over. But after 6 months of being in America, my parents moved to Ohio. So I actually don't claim to be a Minnesotan.
Midwest.
Yep. Good old Stowe, Ohio. And so moving there, my parents were told by Holt to Americanize me. And I don't know if that was common with most adoptees in that era, but they were told not to expose me to any Asian culture at all. They were told to make me as American as possible.
Wow.
So I went to so my dad's a minister, so very religious, strict home. Grew up without a TV. I wasn't allowed to listen to any music outside of Christian music like Amy Grant, Michael W. Smith, and if you're
Michael W.
big
Smith.
names,
Yeah. What do you even need besides those two artists?
Friends are friends forever.
Yeah.
Maybe you can sneak in the fray.
No, that had a drum.
No.
So at the end of the day, I was pretty culturally put in a bubble. American, Christian. I wasn't really exposed to any other cultures. Went to a public school. However, my public school was very, very white. So in kindergarten, my family moved to New Jersey, which you would think would be a little more diverse, except the town I grew up in was like 98% Italian. So most of my friends were Italian Americans. I did have one other token Chinese person in my school. And we actually became friends, ironically, but that was about the extent of my Asian culture throughout elementary school. So then, again, moving on to junior high, I moved to Colorado. So my dad being a minister, I'm not sure if you're familiar with how ministers work, but they move churches every 5-6 years. So our church moved to Colorado Springs, right down the street from you, Nathan.
Mm-hmm.
And Went to a public school there as well. This was a little more diverse. And that's when you start developing friend groups. The majority of my friends were minorities. So in a school of about 1,600 students, there was about 50 total minorities of all races. And we kind of hung out together. That was our little clique. And that kind of goes back to identity and not knowing what it meant to be a Korean, not knowing what it meant to be a Korean adoptee, and trying to find my identity in those friend groups, whether that be in the Italians with it during elementary school to in high school. Most of my friends were African-American or Mexican. So identifying with the African-American culture. One of the caveats I'll say, and I think similar to you, Patrick, I played sports in high school. So that's how the majority of my friendships grew out of. And ironically, the top athletes in my high school were usually out of the 40 minorities in the high school. Not me. I wasn't one of the top athletes.
Unfortunately, I was not included in that.
Yeah.
What sports did you play?
I played basketball, football, and ran track.
Oh, same as me.
Yep.
All right.
So, yeah, I was on the teams, but I was never the star.
To say Colorado Springs has the Olympic Training Center.
And I was never visiting there because that's well out of my league. But that's how I found my way into finding acceptance with people. So my acceptance was more related to shared interests than it was to my racial identity or cultural identity, so to speak. Fast forward to college, I went to a small little Bible college, and the backstory behind why I went to the small little Bible college is because I wanted to play football in college. And being a 5'8", 150-pound Asian guy, you're not going to go play Division I anywhere. So it was a small little Division III school in Minnesota. I would return to my roots. And just some advice for anyone out there looking to go to school, don't pick a school because you want to play small town football. That was not a good choice. The school that I went to was actually more strict than my parents' house. Growing up as a pastor's kid, we couldn't play cards. We couldn't dance. You weren't allowed to have TVs in your room. There was no girls ever allowed. It was really, really strict.
There were no girls allowed to dance.
Not the
no
dance.
dancing.
Nope, no dancing.
Is this a footloose city?
Yeah. So I picked up the game called
Bacon?
Rook. Yeah, I am. Does it look? Yeah. So it was certainly an adjustment getting there. And I soon realized that playing football didn't outweigh being really bored and feeling rebellious and definitely not fitting in because it was a majority white school. Now there was about 50 Hmong. And ironically, my first girlfriend in college was a Hmong girl. And that was the first girl I'd ever dated that was not white. And that was interesting because it was the first time I was really, truly exposed to any non-American culture in my life. Ironically, most of the Hmong people thought I was just a really tall Hmong person because being 5'8", it's very tall for that. So they'd come to speak to me in Hmong and I'd be like, I have no idea what you're saying. But ultimately, they accepted me until I stopped dating the Hmong girl. And then the whole culture kind of shut me out again. So the positive is I made some good friends that I still have today from college. Probably still the closest friends I have today are from that college. I ended up dropping out of school after my sophomore year and going to Colorado Christian University. That was interesting because after having been in, at that point, 20 years of really strict rules and very difficult to have access to anything that would be, partying or anything like that, all of that was very accessible. And so I made a lot of bad decisions and ended up failing out of school in Colorado just because I don't think I was ready for a couple things. One is wanting to fit in, and then also letting the people around me affect my actions and not being independent and just following the crowd. So I ended up moving back to Minnesota and finishing up my degree there because that's where the only credits I had that were passing and graduated. And then I met my wife through mutual friends. My wife her name is Amanda. She's also a Korean adoptee. And we met at her birthday party, ironically. And she had just gotten back from Korea teaching English there for a year. And we hit it off immediately because she wanted to talk about Korea and I wanted to learn about Korea because I had not had any exposure to Korea at all. And it was pretty cool to, hey, you're a Korean adoptee. I had never met another Korean adoptee in my life up to that point. So I was 24 years old. Other than my sister. Sorry, I do have an adopted sister. But we had not met anyone else outside of my family. So we hit it off and got married got engaged 8 months later and married 13 months or 8 months after that. She's going to kill me for not knowing the dates. We are now married, lived in Minnesota for a while, and have recently moved to Texas. With that said, I'd had never been back to Korea. So I recently went back with a tour called the Mosaic Tour. 2 years ago was the first time I went back. And that was life-changing for me because it's the first time, I guess, with my wife and having a shared experience with her, a Korean adoptee. We've had some bonding, but it was the first time I'd met perfect strangers that had the similar experience. The tour itself, what we did on the tour was amazing. But I think what was most amazing was the connection with the 25 other Korean adoptees. So yeah, it's really hard to put into words what the impact is because it feels like it was the first time where I found my place in the world. I told my wife when I got back, I haven't cried that much since my dog died when I was a kid. So after I got back from Korea last year on the Mosaic Tour, it was a hard transition because it almost felt like summer camp. You're there with 25 other people and you have no responsibilities. I was there for 22 days. Even family responsibilities weren't there. So just kind of on my own. And then coming back again to the real world was kind of a shock. And I think I went through, I hate the word depression. I went through kind of just a lull, a life lull. Like this is my life. I wake up, do work, I'd take kids to school, do the father thing. And I'm not saying that's bad. It's just contrasting that to what Korea was really hard to ramp back up. So that winter, I had the fortunate opportunity to be asked to be a volunteer for this year's Mosaic Tour, which it was one of the easiest answers I've ever made in my life was yes, I would love to do it again. It was definitely a different experience. One of the main ones was it was in May this year, so it was way cooler. We weren't sweating like a dog all summer. And then secondly, it was really, I almost feel like it was more impactful emotionally for me because I could see people grow and discover themselves during the process externally, as opposed to kind of finding my way on my own the first year. I could see from day 1 to day 10, the transformation that happened in people's lives and then the community that was built. And being a volunteer, you kind of tried to relay like, this is what's going to happen, but no one really understands that till you experience it. And it was really cool to see that happen. But coming back, I think this year has been harder than even last year was in terms of feeling any belonging here in my current job, whatever, in America, finding any motivation, finding any meaning in stuff that I do. And a lot of that's related to work. I mean, I'm not saying anything about my family. I love my family and I love the situation we're in there, but it's more related to like, what's my life goal? Like, what's my purpose beyond being a father and a husband? So unfortunately, I feel like I'm still in that lull. I think I got over it pretty quickly last year, maybe a couple months, but I mean, I'm now 7 months coming back and I still feel unsettled. Like, how you get the flu and you feel like you can never be comfortable. It just feels like that's my whole body.
You just can't quite kick it.
Yeah. So I can't figure out what the answer is, but I'm certainly searching and would love to get rid of that feeling. And there's certainly other factors that are probably contributing to my, I don't know if it's even anxiety, but just the feeling of no direction. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I want to go back to Korea every year. I don't plan on going back with the Mosaic Tour next year if I'm asked. I mean, that's assuming I get asked, so I'm not even going to make that assumption, but I don't mean that presumptuous, but I do want to go back on my own or with my family. We've taken the kids there 2 years ago after Mosaic Tour. We stayed with our family. I met up with my family and we spent a week. So, and they love it. My son wants to go back and study in Korea. He's a senior in high school. So he's definitely caught the Korean itch, so to speak. Yeah, the bug. I mean, we all want to go back to Korea. It's been that meaningful. So I'll give you a story. Today, I went out to H Mart and got some snacks for tasting today. And I picked up lunch for my wife and I at a Korean little stall at the H Mart. And it was so, while I was waiting for my food, I talked to these ajumas for like 15 minutes. It felt so comfortable just to talk about Korea and talk about being a Korean American. And it just felt really like my place. And that's hard to find at work or in my family even. So
just a personal question. Which H Mart did you go to?
I went to the one in Plano.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay. I didn't know
you have experience with that at the Plano H Mart, KJ?
I don't think I have experience with that one since it's reopened. I think I went before it did the whole business, but the Carrollton one is much closer for me. So that's what I was asking. That's where the four of us have collective experience probably is the Carrollton H Mart.
Yeah. And Carrollton H Mart's a super H Mart. So I think it's like double the size.
Ooh. That was a pretty big one.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Maybe it is a super H Mart.
That's awesome. I didn't even know they had that term. I know super Targets and super Walmarts, but they actually call it a super H Mart. Is that actually a term? Because that's huge.
I think so.
It is a huge one. I mean, it has a food court, which I was very jealous of.
Yeah. I think it's called Super H Mart. I'm trying to picture the sign out front that says Super H Mart, and I can picture it saying just H Mart, and I can also picture it saying Super H Mart.
Yeah. Well, Jonathan, thank you for sharing all the details of your growing up period and moving around from state to state. I had one question, I guess, from back when you were starting to find a little bit of community in the diversity crowd, I guess, of the high school. How did you identify while you were in that group? When people asked you, did you say you were Korean American, Korean adoptee? And how do you identify, I guess, specifically right now?
I would tell people I was Korean, but I had no idea what that meant. I mean, are you from North or South? Well, I'm from South. Well, what does that mean? Or I actually told people I was born in Seoul because I didn't even look at my paperwork. That's the only city I knew. I wasn't even born in Seoul. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm from Seoul. But yeah, people would ask me, have you been back? I'd be like, I don't even know what the food looks like or tastes like. I don't know anything about Korea at all. So that would really kind of end the conversation right away. And I mean, mentally, I identified mentally more as African-American than I did Korean. Mm-hmm. I mean, to this day, I know how to cook soul food more than I know how to cook Korean food.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. Yeah. No, I was just curious because you said your wife was the first Korean adoptee that you had met.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think I had met a few back in high school too, but never to the point where, other than my sister, I never to the point where I had like conversations about it. So, I would just not move into that, quickly. I would do the same thing. I would say I was, Korean.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah. I can really resonate with when you say like you identified or told people you're Korean, but you didn't know what it meant to say that. Like I felt I did the same thing. Mm-hmm. Like I would be like, one of my nicknames was literally the Korean in high school. And
because it was less of a nickname and more of a factual statement.
Exactly. Yeah. But it was but we just said it was a nickname. And it was just like, when I was sharing that with people, when I think about it now, it's like, I didn't really understand what that meant. I just said it, like you said, to kind of end the conversation. Yep. I didn't have to go any further because any follow-up question I had no answer to. So I can totally resonate with that navigation of identity in that way. I had a question about when you came back after your first trip. You said that, it really it impacted you at an internal level. And you said that you felt like you cried more when you first came back from that trip than you ever had in your life. You also said that you had first met your wife when she had first returned from Korea. So I was wondering, you obviously were able to have conversations with her leading up to your own trip about her experience. What were your conversations with her like once you came back and were able to express what that trip was for you? How were you How did you two navigate that conversation? How did she help you in that? How did she support you in that? Or what was that like for you?
Well, her experience was a little bit different than mine because she was teaching English in Korea for 13 months. She didn't learn Korean at all when she was there. When she was there, everyone wanted to speak English to her. So she didn't necessarily, and she was there with other white people. So she wasn't there even with Koreans. It was basically a 13-month vacation with her friends from America, because she went with her best friend and taught for a year. So they were roommates. They did everything together. With that said, I don't think our experiences were in terms of personally finding my identity. I don't think she could relate to that, because I don't think she has. I mean, she made an interesting comment to me just a year ago. I told her, "What do you identify as?" And she says, "I identify as a middle-class white woman." And I'm like, "That's what you identify as?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm a middle-class white woman." Like, "You're not, though." And she's like, "Well, you can't tell me what I identify as." It is what it is. So I still think we don't have as many shared experiences as you think might have been, because we both experienced time in Korea. I think the difference is the connection I made with other adoptees and our shared conversations. I mean, we would have group sessions that would go, 2-3 hours long, just deep dives into people's backgrounds and experiences, and being able to be just completely open and in a really safe space. I don't think my wife has ever been there.
Well, I think it's tough too, because so my wife also taught in Korea just for a month to teach English. And so she had a picture, I don't know, tell us about yourself, right? So she had a picture of me. And they were like, all of her students were really excited that she was dating a Korean person. But I think they were like middle school age. And so I think if they were able to communicate effectively that I was adopted, they'd be like, "Oh," but I don't think they would get it. But I think if they met me, they'd be really disappointed that I wasn't more Korean, like from the nation of Korea. And I feel like I've heard a couple of other Korean adoptees who have gone back to Korea to teach English, and they've been like, "Oh, I thought part of the excitement was I thought that I was going to meet an American, I thought a white American or maybe a black American, but a Korean, I understand who you are." But then if you're adopted, you're like, "Well, now I don't understand who you are, but I'm just kind of disappointed." And so it's it can be overall a disappointing thing. But I think it is unique and powerful that you went to Korea and were with adoptees. I'm curious, what was when you think about that first trip, I'm sure that if you were to give yourself 10 seconds, there would be a whole rush of emotions. What was what's the prevailing feeling when you think about that first trip? I know that you said you cried a lot, but was it that sense of belonging or feeling whole? Is that accurate to what you experienced?
No, I think it was more being able to connect with my feelings. And I'll tell you exactly the first time I cried. We sat down the first opening session, and everyone's introducing themselves. "Hi, I'm John. I'm from Texas." And then we were supposed to say what we're excited for. And bear in mind, coming up to the actual trip, we'd have phone calls and here's what you need to expect. And, and that whole time, I was thinking more of a vacation. So I started out saying, "I'm Jonathan, I'm from Texas. I'm excited to eat the food and meet the people and, experience, go shopping and, experience the culture," just the typical vacation experience.
Yeah.
And I vividly remember, I'm getting chills even saying this, vividly remember pausing and thinking, "And I want to meet my mom." And then just breaking down. Like at that moment was such a huge turning point for me to be able to accept my background, accept being a Korean adoptee. I don't think it was acceptable in my mind to be a Korean adoptee up until that moment. Because people would ask me before the trip, "Do you want to see your mom?" If I do, I do, no big deal. Because I think I was kind of looking down on myself for being an adoptee. It wasn't something I was proud of. It was something I'd kind of want to bury and just hide away. But at that moment, it was no, I do. And that just ramped up the whole trip to why I'm here and what this trip means to me. And it became more integrated with my soul as opposed to just in my head.
Yeah.
So that was a huge, huge moment.
Yeah. So you said that growing up, your adoptive family was told to just like Americanize you and do all of that. And on top of that, growing up in a Christian home in a super secluded, sheltered. That's what I'm looking for. Sheltered environment. I totally get that. Like now that I'm not as much in that space, I'm like, oh, look at all this music that I missed from the time that I was young, and I don't know any of it.
Yeah.
Were you ever curious about Korea growing up? Were there ever any types of conversations by your parents or starting from you about any of that were just like, or was it just like, no, we just don't talk about it, just move on, don't think about it?
So I'll share a couple of stories that are related to that topic. So my parents would take us out for Chinese food occasionally. We'd go to have sweet and sour chicken and by Chinese food, like American Chinese food. And my mother recently told me that she felt guilty for taking our family to Chinese food because it was exposing us to Asian culture. And it wasn't even like the right culture, which is hilarious. And then secondly, like I think my dad being adopted and his adoption was pretty rough. That kind of made talking about adoption not very open. Like my parents would say, yeah, you're adopted, but never about the history. And actually, my parents went to Korea for 2 weeks when I was a freshman in high school and didn't bring me and my sister, left us at home, and then came back from Korea. And I remember vividly my mom saying, oh, the food was so bad. Like, oh, there's such a dirty culture. Oh, just dogging Korea. And maybe she said things positive, but what stuck to me was what a negative experience Korea was. She's like, we ended up just eating at the hotel because they had American food. Like we weren't going to try the street food. Like it was just, and that made me like, I guess Korea sucks. I guess being Korean sucks. Like, I don't want to be anything part of that. Like, I don't want to be, I get made fun of like, oh, Koreans eat dog. You'd hear that. Well, then it just keeps perpetuating the stereotype in my mind of what it means to be a Korean. And I don't want to be that. So I'm going to go find a culture that's acceptable and that will accept me at the same time. And that happened to be African-American and in some cases white. Absolutely too. So just not Korean, not Asian.
Yeah. So when you got to Korea the first time, what was your impression of the country?
Oh, I was in my mind telling my mom, you have no idea what you're talking about. Like, I've had a great relationship with my parents, my adopted parents. I felt like they've loved me and supported me. I think the trip to Korea has jaded my perspective on their, and I don't want to be personal here, but I don't blame them, but they messed up. Almost some bitterness about Korea is this great. And you had me thinking it was a dump my whole life. I was shocked how amazing Korea is. I mean, Seoul, you name it, Daegu, Busan, every city I went to is amazing in their own way. And the food just makes me laugh today. My mom saying how bad the food was. Like, every night it was an amazing, second, third dinner at 4:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
It was so great.
Yeah. So after you met your wife and you guys talked a little bit more about Korean culture and just her experiences as well, did you start exploring food at that time as well? Did you start eating more Korean food, or were you doing a little bit of that prior to that?
Yeah, she definitely opened up my eyes for that. Yeah, I had not had Korean food previous to us meeting. Okay. So she, probably once a week we'd go out for Korean food. We became regulars at a restaurant up in Minnesota that, we ended up becoming friends with the owner, and she's the ones that actually got us hanboks for our wedding. But yeah, we were regulars.
So you wore hanboks for your wedding.
Yeah.
Nice.
Mine was pink. That's I didn't get to pick the color, but I was like, really? That one?
Okay.
But yeah, so I jumped head first. I mean, I think I was ready at that point. I was mature enough. I was late 20s. I was looking to settle down, hence why I was, married so quickly after we met. And I was just mature enough and not narcissistic at that point to think like I need to experience some new things.
I know we met you at our live event in Dallas 2 years ago. Before also, I guess, meeting you at that point, that was right after you'd been to the Korea tour the first time.
Yes.
Great. Prior to that, had you done much diving into the adoptee community with your wife, looking around? Because I know there's a small group in Dallas, but did you do any of that in, say, Minnesota or anywhere else?
Well, funny thing is, we when we first started dating, we started going to a bunch of cat events in Minnesota.
Oh, okay.
But after we got engaged and, got married and had kids, we started to realize that, and I don't mean to offend any of the CAD groups that ever listened to this in Minnesota, it turned out to be like a singles group. Like it was basically like a place to pick up other single adoptees. So we kind of stopped getting invited to stuff, and because we had kids and, we were married and kind of outside of that. And after that, we kind of moved out of that community altogether. Now we did meet a native Korean family that ended up being my son's best friend. Their kid was my son's best friend. So they'd take us to Korean restaurants and cook Korean food for us. So that kind of built the curiosity there. Now in Texas, we certainly have a smaller community. I think there's about 50, maybe 75. And we attend as many events as we can, which is probably once every other month. We'll go to dinner or meet someone. So unfortunately, the majority of them are women. So my wife is a lot closer with a lot of them than I am. But what is it, 10-1 females versus males that were adopted? So the odds are.
Yeah, well, I was actually going to ask you about that too. So I know you went to the Mosaic tour 2 years ago. I had heard about this year's tour from my friend Lana, who you might have met. She was one of the ones that went.
Lovely. Hi, Lana. I know you're listening.
Yeah. I had heard that it was mostly women on the tour as well. How was that when you went 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Was it mostly women as well?
Both tours were.
Okay. Both tours were.
Yeah, like 25 women and 3 guys. And then last year was maybe 24 women and 4 guys. And I think that's pretty common just in terms of a ratio.
Well, I think that definitely from a statistic standpoint, but I also think that there is this emotional stereotype at play when it comes to male adoptees or just males in general having these types of conversations. So when we started the show, like we've been told like when we started the show, we were like, do we need 3 cis dudes talking about stuff and like leading conversations? Is that really what America or just anybody in general needs right now? And we've been affirmed a few different times by folks in the community who've been doing this work for a long time, talking about how in the adoptee community in general, there are very few men who come out and have these types of conversations. And I think it's really necessary for us to be able to find our way into that, because in Western culture specifically, it's like it's been heavily stigmatized for a long time for males to be emotional in any capacity. I know that I was really emotional as a kid when I was growing up and got made fun of it all the time, got told that I was overly sensitive, all of these different things. And for whatever reason, I just continued to lean into that. But I was ostracized and made to feel like I was wrong for feeling that way. And I know after having conversations with other people and just learning more about the way our culture operates that I'm not the only person that felt that way and then was put in that corner.
Yeah.
And so I think even with these opportunities to go about going on these tours, like especially with my Indiana group here of Asian adoptees, like there are male adoptees who are a little bit older who just either didn't know about the opportunity or felt like they weren't allowed to talk about this. And while there might be more women in our group, like when guys find their way to the group, it's like the first time they feel like they even have permission to start having that conversation. And so I think that it's just an interesting dynamic of having to figure out, are we even allowed to have this conversation? And then realizing, oh, we are, and we should be the whole time.
Yeah.
And then being supported and empowered by other dudes or other people in that space who are doing that, like yourself, starting to talk about it. Did you feel like when you said you were in that lull period after that first trip coming back and then carrying over into the second trip, and even still now, a little bit of a disconnect. even though you had found, like, I don't know if it's a wholeness, but an acceptance of that identity piece. Did you notice in your other groups of adoptees, were there any other males operating in that space, any other guys that you felt like, oh, I'm starting to see more people come into this and own it, and that you were able to start having conversations with?
Not males at all. I mean, even in the one here in Texas, I think there's 4 that I've met. And the one thing that I feel like is been a big issue with connecting is because in Korea, we're all kind of at the same place, open to talking and open to being open. Not everyone, even in the adoptee group in Texas, at least, is in that same place. We're all at different points of our journey. And so being able to find that connection and openness, whether it's from a male or a female, in local adoptees has been a challenge. So a lot of just surface, talk, not the connections I made in Korea.
Do you feel like you can have those conversations more openly, even if it's just with anybody else?
Absolutely. I'm ready to talk to anyone that wants to listen, for sure. And that goes back to that moment in Korea where I said the reason I'm here is to find my mom. That was a huge turning point. Like I think I became more curious, more proud, more confident about talking about that type of stuff and being okay with being open and vulnerable. Because like you said, growing up as a male in America, you're taught to kind of bury it. And that's what I have done my whole life, right? In the inverse of you, Patrick, I was always tough guy, right? I'm just the guy talking trash and acting masculine.
I was talking shit.
Okay.
I was just crying about it afterwards.
Okay.
She's also crying into my pillow. Okay, so
Crying when they call this bluff.
Yeah.
No, I had a guy tell me he was going to kick my ass back to China. And I told him, well, if you're going to kick my ass, make sure you kick me to the right country. I'm Korean.
yeah.
And he's like, what the F are you talking about? Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, you'd be like, I don't know, what if I kicked your ass to Africa? How would you like that? You probably wouldn't.
Yeah, he was really big. I wasn't going to say that.
She's like, I'm just talking geography, okay?
Yeah.
No, I think it's interesting. I know that you said that going to Korea was kind of like a summer camp experience for you for the length of time. But I think what you have highlighted as well is the adoptees who find themselves at conferences, on tours, on the podcast, whatever. I think that actually probably with the exception of our podcast, but on those big moments, whether it's a conference or a tour or whatever, they come with a specific mindset and a specific type of willingness to let go, to jump in, to on some level be influenced by their surroundings and by the people in the group and all of that. And especially I think if you couple that with travel, couple that with international travel, couple that with, going back to your birth country, then I think it creates a really unique moment to have those conversations. And what's more difficult then is finding the people who are willing to have those conversations on some level, day in and day out. And I love actually that in your guest form, as you're applying, you're like, I don't know, I don't really have words to express what I experienced in Korea, which is not like just a shining endorsement of me being on a podcast where I have to use words, but I really love that because it is so indicative of the time that you were raised in. And like, I was just reminded of like this idea of not having words and one of my old bosses being like, oh, millennials these days, they always say like, I feel like, and I feel like, and I feel like, and I was like, yeah. But it just reminded me of how important things like little tools, like the feelings wheel can be, where it's like, I have feelings. And if I've not practiced looking literally at some vocab words and expressing myself then it's hard for me to figure out how to express myself. And that's one of the things that on the show that we have really tried to, or I have really tried to focus in on, is how can we continue to give language to each other? And I think, Patrick, to your point, highlighting that, I mean, we have the privilege of, in this case, being for adoptees in different almost decades, I think, of our adoption and birth orders and things within the spectrum of Korean adoption, and where both Korea and America were at a time. Like, it's an interesting privilege and thing to consider about that language. Having been to Korea twice now and kind of been in and out of adoptee spaces more, what's like the main theme, like some language that is really resonating with you at the moment?
Community. One of the outcomes of the trip was finding community and realizing I didn't really have that before the trip. I think there's a difference in my mind between like a friend group and community, and how important community was. And so obviously 25 people, I'm not going to be great friends with everyone on the trip, but I felt community with both tours. Unlike I've had, I used to go to church, right? That was community to a certain extent, but not to the extent of what the Korea trips have been. I think another word was word. Another set of words.
I thought that was the word.
Yeah. The
Word
was just finding myself. Like, unlike people describe it or typically think of, I found myself. Like, it's really, it's beyond that. It's finding, it's being proud of yourself as well. It's taking proud of your identity and finding your identity. I mean, I think I thought I had my identity. Like, I guess before the tour, you would ask me, hey, do you know who you are? Yeah, I know who I am. I'm Korean Adoptee, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think I actually knew what that meant until I went on the tour. So it's like actually discovering what it meant by the words you were saying before the tour. Like, this is what it means. And I think what was really, actually something occurred to me recently is, like, our identity as Korean adoptees, male Korean adoptees, we are a rare breed and almost a dying breed. I went to an event, a Korean adoptee event, and I noticed that majority of the people at the event were older. I'm like, there's no 20-something Korean adoptees here. Like, we are all late 30s, 40s, 50s, and feeling sad about that. Because I think part of coming back from Korea, like, I'm proud to be a Korean adoptee. I'm going to tell everyone about it. This is great. And then realizing that we're about it. That's going to be able to say that, for the good and the bad. I know there's controversy about the whole adoption process in general, but, for me, it is what it is. I'm an adoptee, so I just have to own it. But it was sad to think about, we're going to be it 40 years from now, 50 years from now, we're going to be like a history book notation, which is sad. So I guess that's a million words.
No, I think I really appreciate you, naming that and stating that. I will say that as small as the numbers out of Korea are currently, like, there are still, like, I will tell you, I was actually just talking about this with someone today, that there are like some like 10-year-old Korean adoptees walking around with families in Indianapolis. I see them on the street. So, but I can definitely resonate with, like, this idea of pride. And I love to hear you talk about, like, finding acceptance in your identity, because for me, and how I would describe it, is like, acceptance is so key and so powerful, because it goes beyond even just accepting yourself to being able to, like, love yourself. And I don't know if that might be the way that you describe it, but for me, like, when I found acceptance, like, that's when I found self-love. And it's like, not only could I claim this identity as something that I could be proud of or could talk about openly and know what I was talking about, but also that, like, I was able to start loving myself in a way that I never had in the past. And so, like, that's a really powerful thing. And we want to, like, when we find that and we're a part of this, like, unique, niche, specific community, like, we want to see other people feel that. And I think the beautiful thing about it is, and maybe not beautiful again to the controversial aspects of adoption and the system and industry that it's a part of, is that, we are a part of, like, Korean adoptees are part of the Asian adoptee community, which is just a part of this larger global community of adoptees. And what resonates beyond even just our ethnic group is the way that we find identity, the way that we find acceptance, the way that we find self-love. And the fact that you're able to start sharing and articulating and telling your story, and that you want to do that, doesn't just resonate within the Korean adoptee community, but will resonate beyond that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the powerful, beautiful thing, because at the end of the day, we're just now starting to really see like kids' books that are available that tell the story from the adoptee perspective, written by adoptees, written by Korean adoptees. And those things are going to be there not just for Korean or Asian adoptees to see themselves in, but for people that go through that experience to see themselves in. For kids that are like, oh, I'm not part of I was brought into this family through a really weird, strange, random process, and I feel other. And like some of these resources and things that are being created right now are going to be there for them too.
Yeah.
And like, I think that's the beauty of it. It extends beyond that.
Yeah.
And so I just want to say all that because I appreciate you being able to come on here and share your story and in the desire to want to do that.
Yeah.
I think that's a really powerful thing. You talked about, like, even now that you've been back a second time, there's still a little bit of that, like, unsettled, I think is what you said. There's a little bit of that unsettlement.
It's worse now. It's worse now than last year.
So in that vein, what is next for you? Like, not only addressing that, but just in your own journey. Like, where do you go next for Jonathan Bergstrom? Where does Jonathan Bergstrom go next on this path?
That's a great question that I lose sleep over at night.
Mm.
I mean, Nathan told me earlier that you quit your job, and Patrick, and you started a new career of speaking and podcasting and so forth. Like, that was inspirational.
Wouldn't recommend it.
No, I mean, that was really inspirational for me to hear. Like, that's pretty cool that you did that. And then the counterpoint would be like, I still have to feed my kids. Like,
right.
How does that balance? Because I don't have the ability to, podcast and I'm not articulate for a public speaker or anything like that. So what's my niche that I can pursue? And actually, part of it is just stepping back and be like, what do I actually want to do? Like, what do I want to do? And I'm going to be selfish, right? So what do I want? How do I want to finish out my days? I'm almost 50 years old, 50 years doing what other people want me to do. What do I want to do? And I'm not necessarily a people pleaser, but I'm definitely like, want to fit in. So what other people are doing end up being what I want to do. So what do I want to do? So, there's different things, whether it be switching careers or finding new hobbies that are affordable, like travel the world would be a great hobby. I can't afford it. Being Anthony Bourdain would be a great career, but I can't do that. I don't know. I wish I had an answer. I'm looking. If everyone has any great ideas, DM me on Instagram and shoot me some ideas, because I'm open. Because it's been a struggle. Like just the mundane every day doing the same thing that you don't like, just so I can jump on Instagram and scroll until I fall asleep. Like, that routine just is ready to be done with it.
Yeah. Well, and it can be so life draining. But at the same time, you're like, but I've experienced something so life giving. How do I go to there more often? How can I experience that more often? No, I think it's difficult. And I know exactly what it's like to feel like I want something more. More is maybe not the right word, but I want something different, and it feels selfish to ask. And I think what I think a lot of adoptees who are kind of in this, whether you want to call it post-apocalyptic, fully conscious, out of the fog, whatever space that we're in, when you've had kind of that, like, that moment that really changes your whole worldview or changes your paradigm, it's really hard then to say, well, I want to pursue this. and it feels selfish, and it doesn't have to be selfish. Like there is a needle to thread, or a line to walk, where I think that figuring out what it is and how you can achieve that, whether that's through hobbies, whether that's through a career change, whatever, where you can do that and be good to yourself, be loving to yourself, and also still be good to your family, still be loving to your family, and all those kinds of things. And I think that that's where a lot of, for lack of a better term, a lot of the rest of us find ourselves is, it's just like, I don't know, I've had this life-changing event, but I still have mouths to feed. I still have a job that I'm responsible for, and relationships. And I don't know what the state is with my adoptive family necessarily, because I'm still, I guess, like everything's in turmoil and I'm just figuring it out. But yeah, I hear you. And I think that space that you're in resonates with so many people. And I think it is always a good thing to pursue knowing yourself more fully, and to know yourself well, and then to love yourself well. So we wish you the best of luck on that. And if you, the listener, are sliding into Jonathan's DMs with any ideas, go ahead and slide into the Janchi Show DMs as well. But in the meantime, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we are going to be eating a snack. I saw Jonathan pull out a bag, but I don't know what we're pulling out of our box. So we're going to find out. Here is that break right now.
Welcome back to the Janchi Show. What?
It just seemed like you forgot what you were doing there for a second. You're like, oh, wait, that's my cue.
He was looking something up. I could see him on his other screen looking something up.
I was looking up our snack. So we are back. This is our snack portion, hence my snack research, last minute research here. We are diving into Haiti. I don't know. I always want to pronounce it differently, but we used to say Haiti, and but it's a Ace chocolate biscuit, and I know, Jonathan, you got I think more of an almond biscuit cracker.
Yes.
But
I can tell that my package is completely crumbed.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Well, I
got
put packing peanuts in there, so I don't know. All I know is it's got chocolate in my cookies. I thought I did. I thought I put some packing stuff in there. What are you reading there, KJ? What does it say on the product? Other than it says Sand Ace chocolate biscuit.
Damn.
You were, it's so the name of the brand or the product is Sand Ace.
Sand Ace.
And then Jin Choco. So something about chocolate. I was actually reading the hashtags on the front where it says hashtag Sand Ace, and then hashtag Chinchoco Kurim, and hashtag Basakan Sende. But I don't know. I was trying to figure out if the middle one was like Konglish, but I don't think it is. It's just something about chocolate and cream.
I mean, it looks like just two saltine crackers. Yeah, Ritz crackers pushed together with some chocolate in the middle. I don't know. Jonathan, what does yours look like?
Mine is a saltine cracker with almonds on top.
Almonds on top. Is it sweet?
Ooh. It is sweet, but it's definitely a saltine.
Oh,
but it's like definitely a saltine.
It's actually kind of a mix between a saltine and a Ritz.
Oh,
I like the way this chocolate smells.
All right, this immediately tastes exactly like two Ritz crackers smashed around some chocolate.
Not Ritz. Mm-hmm. No, not Ritz. It tastes like those town crackers.
Oh, like the club crackers.
Club crackers, exactly. That's what it tastes like.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You're right.
That's exactly what mine tastes like too, with a hint of almond. Yeah.
Big fan.
Yeah. No, the chocolate's a lot softer than I expected. Jonathan, are your almonds like crispy or crunchy, or are they just kind of like?
Nope.
They look like slices.
Super thin slices, and you can't even taste them.
How hard did you expect the chocolate to be?
Harder than this. I don't know. I didn't expect it to be soft like Oreo cream. It's essentially like the same kind of like an Oreo middle, but it's chocolate.
So I got to ask, is the Korean chocolate different? Can you tell the difference between Korean chocolate flavor and American chocolate flavor?
I don't think
that's
I'm
a good
a
question.
chocolate connoisseur at a level where I can determine that at all.
Same.
Yeah.
I mean, even though
wanna
I
say
want
that
chocolate
European-
and everything, but
I want to say European chocolates are creamier. I feel like some Korean chocolates are less sweet. But
that was going to be my one thing. I think
yeah.
some Korean chocolate is less sweet.
uh-huh.
I actually appreciate that about Korean desserts in general. Is they're less sweet.
In general, and then you eat a corn dog and they put sugar all over it.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know why that had to happen, but
So Sarah has a Ninja Creamy. So we have a lot of like homemade ice cream. And this chocolate smells like the chocolate that we make, which I think might be from like kind of a powder or like a mix or protein powder, maybe. I don't know. It seems like artificial in a way that like other chocolatey things seem less artificial. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just saying it smells familiar.
It smells artificial.
it smells like an artificial chocolate. Okay.
So do you guys know
What is artificial chocolate?
Not from a cacao bean.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
You know how Korea has a lot of packaged processed foods? I wonder if they're worse than American processed foods, meaning from a health standpoint.
I feel like they gotta be.
I don't know.
Anytime I eat ramen, I'm like, this can't be good for me.
Yeah, the sodium content of that. I mean,
But why is there so little obesity in Korea?
You go walk everywhere.
I was gonna say because they walk everywhere.
And in the summer months when it is oppressively hot, you sweat it all. Well, actually, no, they weren't sweating. I was the only one sweating. I don't know. Great question.
Maybe there's a lot of processed food, but they just eat it in less quantity because usually
I do think it is a quantity situation.
quantity
for sure.
control is definitely different.
Moderation.
Just look at moderation. The portions are smaller.
I just wondered if they had some laws on the book that required even the processed food to have less, I don't know, preservatives or some additives that wouldn't necessarily be healthy that they allow in America.
I don't know. That's a good question. If anyone knows the Korean FDA, let us know because I'm curious too. If I don't know, maybe they just eat more at home and cook themselves. At least that's what my family did. I feel like my family always was cooking at home instead of actually eating out or buying processed foods. So,
for sure.
Because I feel like we are much more fast food culture, more on the go. And so I think that's kind of maybe serves to our obesity there. But as I had Taco Bell tonight for dinner, so I am guilty of that.
Nice.
But all right, ratings. Jonathan, how do you rate your almond cookie cracker?
Is it on a scale of 1 to 10?
1 to 5. Yeah, however.
1 to 5. I would give this a 2.8.
2.8.
2.8.
Slightly above middle, huh?
Yes. Wouldn't buy it again.
Would not buy again.
Well, I am sorry you had to buy a whole box.
Wow.
6 more packs to go.
Yeah, I know. You have kids. Just tell them it's amazing. Tell them it's a 5 out of 5.
Yes. The greatest snack ever.
What would make it better for you?
Less town and country cracker tasting. I mean, it's interesting. On the box, it says to pair it with wine. I have no idea how this would ever go with wine. It tastes like a town and country cracker with almonds.
Yeah, I don't know.
2.8.
Almond cracker with a Pinot Grigio.
Yeah.
Well, there's probably like some meats and cheeses
maybe
out there with the crackers as well.
Mozzarella, tomato, and a glass of wine.
All right.
Okay.
See?
Mozzarella, tomato, glass of, okay, so just like a
caprese
mozzarella
salad.
and a-
Caprese?
Yeah, thank you. Yep.
Crazy.
I had no idea. But
All
I know
right,
what that is.
what about you, Patrick, since you love chocolate so much and not the fake chocolate?
I don't know. Honestly,
You're gonna say you
I'm gonna
wish there
give
was
it.
more chocolate.
I actually was going to say that. I was going
You
to say
left
this
the
is like
double
a
stuff.
2.5 snack for me. Like it is just, it's mid. I'm giving it a mid rating. It's literally mid because I just feel like it's not. There's another package in there. I'm like, I don't even know if I want to eat that. Well, maybe I'll eat it some other time. And normally, if it's good, I would have already eaten it.
You'd have already
So-
finished everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wish it was more. I mean, I do like the cracker taste. I wish there was more chocolate. It's very messy. And maybe that's just because it got shipped, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like, it doesn't stick out to me. There's nothing astounding about it. It's just fine. So 2.5.
Hey, Tay. There you go.
Sorry, Hate.
Right there with Patrick. I wish that there was more chocolate. It's almost to the point where like I either wish there was more chocolate or just no chocolate. You know what I mean? But like the amount that they gave, and you're just like, what are you even doing here? Just get out of the way or be more present.
It's true.
I
it
do
was
feel
not
that way
very
about it.
chocolatey. You're right.
So, but I love the cracker. I think it's really good. I've eaten 3 packets, but I think it's because I kind of accidentally skipped dinner tonight. So might just be more general hunger than like a real staunch endorsement of this Heyte Sand Ace. But yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. I probably like the other Ace crackers. I don't even know if it's made by Heyte, but we've had like some other Ace crackers on the show that are also good. So yeah, I'm gonna say, all that being said, I'd give it a 3. I probably like it a little bit more than Patrick, but not much more.
That's not much more. I'm kind of with Patrick. 2.5 for me, right in the middle. It's good. It's tasty, but it's not something I'm gonna crave, and it's not something I'll probably buy again. But it's decent. The cracker was good too. Although when I taste those types of crackers, all I think about is like pairing it with cheese or something like that too. Like I think I would have rather
salad.
Yeah, I would have rather had the cheese instead of the chocolate in it. So, but maybe a little slice of salami, some from Pepperidge Farm or something. I don't know.
Does that go with chocolate though?
Pepperidge Farms.
No, with crackers. Those crackers.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Not with.
Maybe it says on the packaging it's a hint of chocolate, and we just can't read it because you were saying that it has just a little bit of chocolate in it.
It
So
does
maybe
have
it's
like
a
this
thin
little playful chin chocolate. So maybe that is just like thin chocolate. I don't know.
It's like somebody put like the chocolate spread on a knife and then spread it, but only like half of it got on this cracker, and then they squeezed the cracker on the top cracker.
Some lazy factory worker was like, "Good enough.
Yeah, good enough.
Move on."
Some guy with a chocolate spread was just tripped over and fell on top of it.
They did it, and they looked at it and they go, and then they passed it on.
I'll make it.
That's fine.
Now
It'll
we're
hit
getting into
quota.
one of those. Now this is sounding like a Reese's peanut butter cup commercial where the chocolate and the peanut butter meet. And they, hey, this is a product. All right, well, good stuff.
What?
Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on the show and for sharing all those details with us. We really appreciate seeing you again, and also hearing more about your story and about the tour as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's been great.
You said that you were ready to connect and share with people. How do people get a hold of you, get in touch with you, hit you up on Instagram if they want to talk to you?
Oh, you're asking me to tell you my Instagram handle? I don't know that.
If you want.
I honestly
where
have no
can people
idea.
reach out to you if you want people to reach out to you?
So I would say the fastest way to do it would be Facebook if you're a Gen Xer like me and actually is on Facebook. But
Nathan's on there.
Yeah, that's where Jonathan and I were talking.
Facebook Messenger. No, but I'm also on Kakao, and it's under my name if they want to connect with me there, and WhatsApp and some of the other. But there's not many Jonathan Bergstroms out there, so you can locate me pretty easily.
All right.
I've Googled myself. There's not many.
He's the Korean one.
And I was going to say, if there are a lot of Jonathan Bergstroms, he's the Asian one.
He is the Asian one. All right. Well, we'll link your Facebook in the show notes. And if we come across your Instagram handle, we'll put that down there too.
Okay.
Right next or underneath ours, or wait, probably above it, actually. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Usually gets precedence.
It's okay.
For anybody who wants to DM us, you can do so at Janchi Show on all those social media platforms. We would love for you to tell us all the different things that you thought about this episode. You can do so via email at janchishow@gmail.com. You can also leave us a voicemail, of which we have many, at 972-677-8867. And I think that's all for contacting. If you want to support the show, we'd love for you to visit our website, janchishow.com. We have a store. We have the rest of the stuff that's on there. It's a super fun, expansive thing. So please check us out there. And last but not least, if you do feel so inclined and would like to leave us a rating or review wherever you get your podcast, we would greatly appreciate that as well. I am at Patrick in the World, wherever I want to be found on the internet.
I am also on Facebook, Nathan Nowak, and Nowak on Instagram.
You can find me at KJ Roelke everywhere I would like to be found.
Everywhere he wants to be found, where I want to be found, where Nathan wants to be found. Oh, on Facebook too, you can join Nathan in the Janchi Show after party, which is still active, I believe. I don't know. I'm not on Facebook.
It's there.
It's still there, maybe not so active.
I think the DJ is exclusively playing Enya right now, so
Perfect.
that's the vibe.
All right. Well, that makes me not want to get back on Facebook.
Michael W. Smith. Switch it.
Michael W. Smith. I love it.
Friends forever.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. That is a full circle moment here
We
on
should
this
chat about that
episode.
one, Jonathan.
Jonathan, thank you so much
It was my
for
first
coming
concert.
on.
Oh my gosh.
Mine too.
Yours too.
Yes.
All right. Well, join Jonathan and Nathan in the after party to talk about your first Michael W. Smith concert experience. And until next week, we will catch you right back here. And until then, Janchi.
Hey!